Welcome to an introduction to tea blogging. For starters, let me tell you a bit about myself. My name is Nicole, and I'm the author of the blog Tea for Me, Please. I first started writing about tea nearly 12 years ago. Blogging has opened so many doors in my life and helped me to meet amazing people from around the world. In 2018, I won the World Tea Award for Best Tea Blog. Today, we're going to discuss some of the basics of getting started with tea blogging. This is a massive topic, but it would be helpful to those who've been thinking about doing it but haven't gotten started yet. Why should you blog about tea? Writing is my creative outlet. I have no artistic abilities whatsoever, but writing gives me a way to express myself. My blog is a blank canvas that I can make into whatever I want it to be. Through tea blogging, I've also learned skills that I never would have developed otherwise. Proofreading, HTML coding, graphic design, photography, social media management, and video editing are just a few of the things that I've learned how to do over the years. My favorite part about tea blogging is the sense of community that it's given me. Tea people are the best people. I forged lifelong friendships with my readers, fellow bloggers, and tea vendors. Our paths never would have crossed if I didn't start my blog. So how do you get started? The first step is choosing your platform. There are a lot of options out there, and they all have different advantages and disadvantages, but we're going to discuss kind of the three most popular choices. So WordPress is the one that you will probably see recommended the most often. It's important to know that there are two different versions of WordPress. So WordPress.com is free or also has paid versions as well. And is more simple to use, whereas WordPress.org is more complex and requires you to have a host, but it does give you more control over your site as well as your content. Squarespace isn't free, but it is very easy to use, especially for those that aren't tech savvy. Blogger is also free and easy to use, but the downside is that it is an older platform and it's becoming increasingly outdated. My blog was on Blogger for a very long time, but I wound up having to leave just as my needs have changed as my blog has grown. So if you've never run a blog before, it can be a challenge to find your voice. The most important piece of advice that I can give is to be yourself. It sounds cliche, but it's true. Each blogger brings different experiences and perspectives to what they write. Being yourself will make writing feel more like fun and less like work. It is human nature to compare ourselves to others. Each of us has that little voice in our heads that tries to convince us that we aren't good enough. Bloggers have dubbed this imposter syndrome. Basically, it's something that makes you think that you're not good enough and that what you do is not worth somebody else reading. And so giving into those thoughts can make a blogger quit or even stop you from getting started in the first place. When this happens, I find that it helps to talk with a trusted friend who can kind of turn that around and make sure that you're not giving into those thoughts because they generally really aren't true. Your voice definitely deserves to be heard. Ethics are an important aspect of blogging. I would say the most important thing for any tea blogger would be to have a review policy posted on your blog that clearly lets tea vendors know what your terms are. And also it helps to reassure readers that you're being honest and upfront about everything that occurs on your blog. Because without that document there, they don't really know what you're about, but that kind of helps them understand that, they can trust you. So there are definitely a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes to these things. Always ask for permission to use other people's work. It is much better to use a free stock photo than to get into legal hot water by using somebody else's photo without permission. that also includes words as well. You always want to ask permission if you're quoting someone. Most people are totally flattered to be quoted and, you know, are totally fine with you using their work in certain ways. But you'll always want to make sure that you do ask for permission first. And when it comes to writing about tea, it is absolutely essential that you disclose when a product is gifted or provided for review. Depending on where you live, not doing that could actually get you into legal trouble. Here in the United States, they don't necessarily enforce that as much, but there are countries where that does get enforced quite a bit. So it is really, really important to make sure that you do that. And so throughout my blogging career, I've tried my best to be fair and balanced. One of the most important things for tea bloggers to keep in mind is that taste is subjective. If you don't enjoy a particular tea, that doesn't necessarily make it bad. It just means that it's not for you. And so the way that you approach your review should be in a way that kind of makes that clear. You don't want to go bad mouthing a company or a particular tea just because it was not your cup of tea. I kind of learned this early on. Before I even started my blog, I wrote reviews for a website called teaviews.com, and I was sent a tea with chili peppers in it. And I do not like spicy things at all. And I, needless to say, hated this tea a lot. It really just was not my thing at all. Way too spicy. I could barely drink it. But one of the other reviewers who tasted that same tea grew up in Southern California. And so he was used to eating a lot of spicy food, and he thought that tea tasted like home. And so that was like an experience that I try to keep in mind when I have a tea that I don't necessarily enjoy. So can you make money from a tea blog? I think it's really important to manage your expectations. Tea is a very, very small niche if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. So it's really important to make sure that you're not comparing a tea blog to broader topics like fashion or beauty, where those are kind of blogs that people know do make quite a bit of money. But there are certainly some things you can do to make some money off of a tea blog. So you can have ads where you can sell ads directly to a tea company. You can use an ad network like Google AdSense, or MediaNet is another one that's popular as well. You can use affiliate links. So these are a link where you'll make a small commission off of sales that are generated from your blog. For me, these tend not to do particularly well. I've had a lot of tea companies over the years offer, for me to join their affiliate program, and I generally don't really make anything off of those. The one exception would be Amazon affiliate ads, as those have actually done fairly well for me, especially if I write about a book that is about tea. Is that way, there's a link for people to follow if they want to read that book. And I think it's also important to think outside of the box. Is there are ways for you to kind of indirectly make money through your blog. So because of my blog, over the years, I have had opportunities to do different freelancing jobs that basically, like the skills that I mentioned that I developed because of the blog, I will sometimes take on jobs involving those skills, especially social media management. And so that is definitely one way that you can certainly monetize, in a way, a tea blog. But it is important to keep in mind that you are not certainly going to make a full-time income from a tea blog. Well, I hope today's presentation has given you some inspiration and laid the groundwork for starting your own tea blog. Now, to finish, I would love to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you all so much for watching.
Thank you, Nicole, so much for sharing.
No problem. Thank you. You must be so tired. This has been like a really long day for you, I'm sure, but it's been so amazing. I've enjoyed all the
I will keep
presentations.
drinking.
I'm sure.
And in the beginning, I had so much tech problem, which made me wide awake. So I think I'm gonna be tired afterwards.
Yeah,
But
like
so
you'll
far,
crash
I
when it's
feel
done.
great. Yes. Let's see whether we have questions from the audience. Solided as you name in the Canva presentation 3 platforms. I now comfortable with them and use Medium. What is your opinion on that? Should I migrate? So her blog is on Medium, but we mentioned about WordPress, Blogger, and Squarespace. So what's your opinion
Sure.
on it?
I would say, if you're comfortable on Medium and you're happy being there, then that's definitely fine. There's so many different options and ways that you can blog. There are people who blog only through Instagram. So it definitely, it's not to say that you can't use something else. Just those are kind of the three biggest. I would say the one thing with Medium is that you don't own Medium. So if Medium was to suddenly shut down tomorrow, you might lose all of your work. So it would definitely be a good idea. I would say if you are on Medium to kind of back up what you are writing, so that way, if something was to happen and they were to shut down suddenly, you would be able to back up your work and move that somewhere else.
Thank you.
Nope,
And
nope.
Donna said, how do you acquire traffic to your blog?
I would say most of my traffic comes from Google. So it's generally people will search on Google about different topics on tea. And that generally almost 60 to 70% of my traffic comes that way. They might be searching for a specific tea or how to make it. My most popular post is how to make matcha without a whisk. So I think a lot of people are, interested in matcha, but they have no idea how to make it once they get home. So that definitely brings a lot of people to my blog.
Having traffic from Google means your content is like high quality, or your worked on SEO. Do you work on strategically, or it worked out like naturally?
When I first started, it just kind of happened. I started my blog really more as a vlog for myself personally, and then other people started reading it. But over the years, I have gotten more serious about my blog, and so I do kind of, when I'm writing a blog post, I do kind of think about some things with SEO, or like make sure that my images are tagged correctly and things like that to make sure that it's optimized. But I still try to write kind of organically as myself, so it's not like I don't like stuff keywords or anything like that some people might do.
Could you briefly explain what SEO is?
Oh, sure. So SEO is search engine optimization. And so basically it's just like tactics that you would do to make Google more likely to like your blog or your website. So it's things like, making sure that your content is tagged appropriately. Google likes if you break up your text with headings. So like rather than just one long blog post, you're going to want to have different sections so that it's more visually appealing and easier to read for readers. And that's really what Google's looking for now. Is their algorithm is really smart, and it's basically looking for websites that give readers the best experience. So the longer they stay on your website and the more likely they are to find what it is they're looking for, the more likely Google is to recommend you to people.
For the first time, Google's announcing how their algorithm's gonna change because of the coronavirus. So for anyone who's interested about like Google algorithm, you can search it, and then they already announced how it's gonna change it.
Yeah, a lot of the times they're very secretive about exactly how their algorithm works because they don't want people trying to kind of scam the system.
And Marilyn asked if I wanted to move my blog from Blogger to WordPress, can I move the full blog to the new format?
You definitely can. It depends on kind of how you're choosing to do it, but I know like a lot of WordPress hosts will actually assist you as kind of their part of their deal package with you starting with them, is they'll offer to help you migrate your content. I personally did have a lot of issues. I kind of broke my blog accidentally.
No.
Yeah, so I was on Blogger
How that happened?
I was on Blogger for a very long time. And I finally, one of my friends convinced me that I should move it to somewhere else. And so I was too lazy and I was like, I'm going to go to Squarespace because I don't want to deal with WordPress. And somehow Squarespace and Blogger don't work well together. And so after a few months, I realized that Google couldn't see my blog at all anymore. So my traffic just like
Oh, that's
nosedived really.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, so I had to like emergency evacuate everything to WordPress. And so that was a bit of
Oh.
a fiasco. I definitely should have gone from Blogger directly to WordPress.
Amber asked, how do you manage the expectations of vendors who send you tea for review? If you don't like the tea, do you let them know before you publish the post?
Yeah, I actually generally won't write about something if I really feel it's that bad. It's kind of one of those, I just don't want to waste energy on bad tea when there's so many good ones out there.
So true.
Yeah, so I'll definitely tell the company if I really truly think that something was terrible. Um, I do kind of, I have a review policy on my blog that kind of clearly states how I operate and my rules, so that, before I even give them my address, I send them that link and I say, let me know if all of this is okay before we move forward. So that way they have their expectations as far as kind of what I'm capable of. Like I am extremely busy and I receive a lot of samples. So I generally make sure companies know that I can't guarantee a time frame for when their tea will be published. Some of what's getting published on my blog right now, I drank a year ago. It's just that my backlog is kind of that big as far as actually getting blog posts written. So I think it's definitely really important to be upfront like that so that they know what to expect from me. And I always kind of make sure that they're going to let me know if they have any expectations too before I accept any samples.
I think that's why you mentioned the terms during your presentation, because I feel like I saw your terms and then you mentioned about the length. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
definitely really important to be very upfront about that. Not even just, from a legal standpoint, but really just from an ethical standpoint. The tea community is really small. So if you're just, taking free stuff for the sake of taking free stuff and not kind of fulfilling your end of the deal, then, your word's going to get out, because the community is actually pretty small and a lot of people talk to each other.
Ingrid asked, who are your favorite tea bloggers to follow? Do you have your
Ah,
favorite?
that's
That's
hard.
tough one.
I read every blog that there is that's about tea. Is every Friday on my blog, I write something called the Friday Roundup, where I just pick 5 of my favorite blog posts that were published that week from other people. So because of that, I really do read everybody's blog. And so it is so hard to pick favorites. I would say one of my favorites is definitely Form Follows Tea. She has a really unique visual way of reviewing a tea. So instead of writing like a big long paragraph, she'll make these graphics where like if a tea is milky, it'll have a picture of a gallon of milk. And like it's just a fun way
Oh,
to
that's fun.
describe the tea. Yeah. I really love finding a blog that like is just different from other ones. So that's definitely one that pops into my head right now.
What was the name again?
Form Follows Tea.
Form follows tea. Stephania asked, have you ever think about to use other formats like podcast?
Definitely. I did kind of do a podcast years ago where I would interview tea companies, and I had it on iTunes and on YouTube, and that just wound up being an awful lot of work in addition to running a blog. That it just like as my life has changed, I just didn't have the free time to do that. I have started doing more YouTube videos though, so that's kind of like my alternative platform right now that like instead of the blog, I'm also kind of trying to create videos as well.
What is it like a process of creating video? Because blog is more about text, video is more about visual. Like, do you find it different? Like in terms of showing your creativity, what's the transition like?
It definitely is. I really don't like being on camera that much. It makes me really nervous. So I find
Thank you for being here
no,
now.
no, this is at least I'm having a conversation with a person, so it's not not so scary. But I definitely, I'll try things a lot of different ways, so that way when I go to edit, if I don't like the way something is, I have other options. Because it's like you don't want to change your clothes and reshoot things on different days because it'll look weird. So I'll kind of try something, say it different ways, do it in different ways, different angles. That way, it kind of like I can still make it into something that I would be able to publish, even if I'm not super happy with like every part of it.
Bruin asks, where is your audience? Mostly in the US or also other parts of the world?
It definitely is mostly in the US, about 70%, I would say. But I definitely do have visitors from all over the world, which is what's I really like about tea, that, I can look at my kind of Google Analytics and see that people have visited from all over. And it always makes me like kind of secretly really happy when I look and I see that people were visiting from like China or Taiwan.
It gets interesting.
Yeah.
Ria asked, how do you keep up a consistent content schedule?
It's hard, definitely. Years ago, I was actually publishing 7 days a week, and that was a lot of work. Basically, I finally realized I can't keep doing that. So I kind of made myself a schedule where I publish 3 days a week. I'm not always able to do it every week. And sometimes you just have to forgive yourself that like life happens. You're not always able to post a blog post when you want to. And most of the time people don't notice, or like they're okay with it. Like they know you have a life and that you're, not chained to your computer pumping out blog posts. But generally I try to do like Mondays, I try to publish like an informational post. Wednesdays, I try to do a tea review. And then Fridays, I do like the Friday roundup where it's just a collection of other people's blogs.
I respect. I lost my word for a moment. We have tea vendors in the audience, and Kyle asked, do you want some new tea to review, or are you backlogged with too much teas?
I am very, very backlogged. I actually put myself on a no sample hiatus for a while just because I kind of have to drink through what I have here. I'll definitely let you know once I'm able to actually have new tea though.
Kyle's from Waco and Global. If you're just wanna have a look,
Oh,
you can
sure.
go to Expo, and then we'll be able to meet Kyle.
Cool.
Donna said, what do you cover on your blog?
So for me, it really does vary quite a bit. Anything related to tea. So for me, I'll write about, a tea review where I'll write about a tea that I drunk and what I think about it. I'll write informational post, that's just, maybe an introduction to this particular type of tea or a certain type of teaware, how to use something, just something that I think somebody would find useful. I'll write about events, or if I go to a tea house, I'll write about my experience there. So really just about anything as long as it relates to tea for me.
Priscilla asked, how important do you think it is that a tea blogger is well educated about tea? It might sound obvious, but many people give opinions without fundamentals.
Yeah, it's tough because it's one of those, I think the more you know about tea, the more you know that you know nothing. Um, that it's like when you first start out, you think you got it down, and then like the more you learn about tea, you're like, wait, I'm still learning things, and this isn't true, and I thought it was. And so I think it's really important to just always be a student, that like you're always learning, that you always come up with, you're not stuck in a particular opinion, that you should always be talking to others and taking things from them, reading books. I try to educate myself about tea as much as I can. mostly because I love it. But I don't think you need to be an expert to blog about tea, because I think part of what brings readers along with you is that they're on that journey with you. If you're like a super, super high level expert from the beginning, they'll learn from you, but they also might be intimidated. Where I think there's definitely a lot of value in, if you find a blogger who's kind of at the same level you are and you can kind of learn and grow together.
I have a personal question.
Sure.
While from the slide, you mentioned about imposter syndrome. Like, it sounded like you experienced it and then now you realized something. Like, what was your journey? Because obviously, owning a blog, you take time to write something, and then it gives that process of having your own journey with life or about tea, and then ups and downs. So how did you overcome it? I mean, you mentioned talk to families and close people, but like, in which area did you feel the most about like you're not good enough?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think any person, anytime you're creating something and putting it out there for the world to see, we all have that kind of little bit of self-consciousness that you worry, is this good enough? Other people are going to say it sucks, or, you just have those thoughts in your head. And over the years, I've known tea bloggers who quit because they couldn't stop comparing themselves to others. That it, no matter what, the grass is always greener on the other side. It's like such a cliche, but you do always look at somebody else's life or somebody else's blog and think it's so much better than yours, where they may be thinking the same exact thoughts about you. But it definitely is something that I've dealt with, over the years, that, sometimes, you might get a comment from somebody who, is just like a keyboard warrior who felt like, making a comment to bring you down. And it gets to
Yeah.
that, you do have to kind of develop a thick skin when you're putting yourself out there on the internet to, not care so much what other people think. And that definitely plays into that imposter syndrome as well. It was so funny. I read about imposter syndrome in a book about blogging, but it was like years after I had already started my blog. And as soon as I heard that word, I was like, that's exactly how I felt. That I think it perfectly describes that feeling. But it definitely, I think, talking to other people about it, is, I think, the biggest thing. I always tell new bloggers that like write me for advice. I always tell them, like, talk to me, like, I'm always here, because to have somebody that you can say, I'm feeling really down, this wasn't good, this didn't come out how I wanted to, they can kind of put things into perspective and give things a more positive light than you would for yourself.
People are cheering. You're
Oh,
really inspiring.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you all so much. I definitely hope
Like,
that you may have been thinking about writing a blog, and that this might kind of give you that nudge.
yeah, actually have my own blog, but haven't touched it for a while. Now I think it's my time to touch it again.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for your
No
time.
problem.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Thank
Really
you.
learned a lot. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.